Thank you to those of you that subscribed for this live. We are a couple of minutes early, but I wanted to hop on, do my sound check, make sure that my live is available for public viewing, check my lives, and let's see, 26 waiting. Maybe it's not working yet. Hold on. Please. A ver. Connecting stream. No, a ver. There's something I'm doing wrong. Waiting for Annie, October at 9:30. Maybe I just... Oh, we're back. Okay, hello, besties. Welcome back, YouTube. Let me know how my sound is. I'm sorry you don't get like an official intro. This is my first time doing this. I'm so sorry. Okay. Neighbor Wars and Mexico live discussion. Welcome. This is where we will be unpacking episodes 1, 2, and 3 from our Neighbor War series that I dropped earlier this week. There has been a lot to unpack, and I need to make this public. Hold on. It's private. Okay, now I'm here. Okay, we're back. Hello, besties. Thank you to all of you in the waiting room. Welcome back to YouTube. And welcome to our live discussions of episodes 1, 2, and 3 of the Neighbor War series. If you're just joining, drop a comment below. Let me know that you guys are in here, how my sound is. And okay, I'm actually really excited for this live because this is where we will kind of unpack all the episodes together. And I'm hoping that the majority of you that are here have had a chance to watch all the videos. It was a lot of content. There was a lot to unpack, and it was very emotionally charged. Wait, am I live? Can y'all see me? Because, hold on. I wanted to have like the smoothest transition into this, but I don't see any comments. So are y'all here or no? Duplicate stream key. Chat publicly. Oh, you're here. Okay. I don't know why I can't see the comments over here, but we're here. Okay. I'm sorry. I had some technical difficulties. I couldn't see your comments, but we're here. Welcome to everybody that's joining. Okay, so let's get right into it. I have my phone on the side so that I can see your guys' comments and kind of engage from there. But I wanted to just really give us this live to regroup from all the episodes because there was so much that happened. And first and foremost, I want to talk about why I decided to start this series. Although it was for content, right? I knew that there was a lot of traffic on TikTok with this series and a lot of interest. But these are all the things that I never got to share with my neighbors. If you are here, you probably know we can fast forward to 2024 and I actually had to move out of my house. A lot happened. So anyway, let's talk about episode 1. We're gonna take this in order. Feel free to start dropping your questions, your comments, your feelings. And the reason why I wanted to do this live is because I want the feedback, right? I really do. Like if I'm wrong, because I know that I have contributed to this as well. I know that I didn't do everything right. I know that there were, especially now that I'm looking back on the recordings of surveillance footage, I believe I was very defensive in some of these conversations, particularly I think in episode 2 when they came to my house. Now, and I told you guys, like, I'm nervous. I think this might be the one where you guys jump ship. But anyways, let's start on episode 1. Episode 1 is where I gave you guys the backstory of where everything began. From day 1, right, of where we purchased my home. I was the first one there. Jimmy's the second. I kind of gave you a history. And once upon a time, we all got along, right? But in this video, episode 1, I showed you guys some of the evidence of the approvals that I was giving by Jimmy. So I started the construction of my home because I saw other neighbors that had began expanding their homes, and I was like, oh cool, you know, like that's such a good idea. Most neighbors, well, all the neighbors that expanded only expanded their kitchen into their backyard, but everything was done very unofficial. There was never any approval from the rest of the community for what they were going to do. There was no meetings held on it. So I mirrored that, right? And when I went to the administrator, who happened to be Jimmy, he's the one that let me in, or he's the one that helped me bring in the trucks. He gave me permission for the material. He okayed the entire project until we get to the meeting where he's removed as administrator. And that is kind of where everything starts, February 2023. My most important receipt in that video was the dates. Okay. And this is jumping ahead a little bit, but he is telling anybody that will listen that they told me to stop from the beginning, and that I just kept going and I kept going. And that the first official complaint with the city was filed in March 2023. The receipts that I showed in episode 1 show that in January of 2023, I already had 3 floors. So they didn't start any action, any complaints until I already had 3 floors. And that is where like my frustration came when all of this started coming to light, was why didn't you stop me when I was still in construction? And there was a lot of things that they could have done that they didn't do. And so to me, that was an approval. All right, let me go through some of these comments really quick on episode 1. I will have this live available for replay if you miss it, but I did want to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions, to, give me your perspectives on the first episode 1, 2, 3. You made her feel like low class and they always gonna hate. Oh. Saludos desde Sonora. Hola, hola Héctor, saludos. Hay también, acá también hay vecinos tóxicos. Okay, but can we agree they're a little toxic? Can we agree they're a little extra? A lot extra? Okay, let's hop over to episode 2. Episode 1 really was just kind of giving you guys the groundwork, the history. We moved in, when we bought our houses, how everybody got along, and the start of my project, right? The approvals to start that project. Episode 2. Remind me what's on episode 2. Let me bring it up because I forgot kind of how I sectioned these. I just love how they want you to demolish all the investment like it's a simple thing. Yes, that has also been kind of crazy when they have worded like you need to take it down. And I'm the one that introduced the word demolish. What you're asking for is a demo of my home. You want me to demolish my home. And that just seems really crazy because you didn't take, there were things that they could have done to stop my project if they really were against it. But they weren't against it until I got to the rooftop. And okay, let me go into episode 2. And to me personally, I feel like you dropped the ball, right? You dropped the ball because you didn't have law and order when I started this project. And I started this project because there was like through the other, how the other neighbors did it, right? But then you needed to make an example out of me because I did too much for your liking. And that is kind of where, I'm a little bit frustrated. All right, episode 2 was... Welcome back to HOA Ward. Conversations I had. Oh, episode 2 is where you kind of see the history of the conversations that they did have with me, right? When he came to me about the... why are you making that funny sound? When he came to me about the barandal. I believe episode 2 is also the conversations that I had with Chlas in her restaurant. They aren't even illegal HOA. So I haven't even gotten to that part of the story yet. Episode 4 is where we begin to unpack the legalities. But episode 2, let's talk about the conversation that I had with Chlas. Okay. And episode 2 really focused on my interactions with her, the history with her, the drama with her, and where it went south. And in my opinion, and you can disagree, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I was very considerate of her. I feel like I really tried. Not only did I go speak to her, I went to speak to her renter. I offered retribution. I offered to pay her rent. I offered because I acknowledged at that point that her renter had moved out because of my construction. So I knew that I had affected her. And you hear me say that to her in the recording. Like, I realized, like, even if I didn't mean to, even if I didn't do it on purpose, it happened, right? She lost her renter because of me. So yes, that impacted her income. Give me your thoughts. Give me your thoughts on my conversation with her. They have no legal right to make you do anything. Jimmy and Chlas made this personal because you don't bow down to them. It did begin to feel like a power trip, 100%. And I started to feel that early on in my interactions with Chlas, when she just had this demeanor about her where she could just show up to my house and demand things. Demand me to change the wall. You need to do my grass. Don't post this on social media. It began to feel like a power trip. And everything was going fine. You can see through the interactions that we had, until I put my foot down and I said no more. No, I'm not going to do your grass. No, I'm not going to revise the wall again. You guys saw the receipts in episode 2 of the approvals that she gave me. So initially, she was okay with me having windows. So I paid for my window to be custom made and installed on level 1. And then Jimmy got into her ear and she didn't want the window. So I had to remove it and seal both holes. I don't think I showed these on the YouTube video, but I recently showed them on Instagram, and I will show them on episode 4. But I even sent her pictures of the material that I would be using. She approved it all. She gave me access to her house for a week to be able to make these modifications. Okay, so once I was done, then she wanted me to do her grass. And then she decided she didn't like the glass block. She wanted it to be white cinder block like the rest of the wall. And that's when I said no more. I'm not going to make any more alterations, because she just keeps asking and asking and asking, and she's never going to be happy. And at the end of the day, I realized it doesn't matter what I do, she's not going to be happy, and I'm aquí no voy a quedar bien. Even if I go talk to her, even if I do this, even if I do that. She was fine with it all, as long as she felt like she could punk you to do whatever she wanted you to do. Yeah, I think you went politely to speak with her, and then came to your house with such an attitude. So in all the content sense, when she's talked about, well, she went to my house, when she said she went to my restaurant, you went to my restaurant, you went to my restaurant. I went to her restaurant because she invited me there, and I went there at a set time and date chosen by her. I did not just pull up to her restaurant one day with like, let's talk. I did not just pull up. She showed up to my house uninvited after I had blocked her on WhatsApp. And I'm sorry, but can we all collectively agree that if I block you on WhatsApp, unless I'm fucking you, that is not an invitation to pull up to my house? Chanclas, me and you was not fucking, okay? That memo is only for my dude, okay? If I block him, yes, please pull up. But that does not go for bitches, okay? The moment that I blocked you from my WhatsApp, that was not an invitation for you to pull up to my house. Okay, so there's no comparing the two incidents where she's constantly saying, when she came to my restaurant, she came to my restaurant, she came to my restaurant. I went there with respect, with an invitation, with apologies, with a sincere attitude to come to an agreement. But not because I was afraid, not because I went there because I wanted peace and I didn't want to have problems, because I really, believe it or not, I'm not a problematic person. I'm a very non-confrontational person. It was also stressing me out. It was stressing out my kids. So I put my pride aside despite all the fuckery she had already done to me. By the time I went to her restaurant, she had already sent the police multiple times. She had sent the city on me. The day after I gave her the wall, painted, stuccoed, glass blocks. Mind you, I had no obligation to do any of that. I could have thrown up my wall and left the other side not stuccoed and not painted, so it would be an ugly like brick on her side. But I didn't do that, right? I left it in good conditions so that it wasn't ugly, but I didn't have any obligations to do any of that. And I got to a point, and also from my attorney's advice, I didn't have to do any of that. Even if, in her, like, for argument's sake, if I had left the window there, which is against civil law or whatever due to privacy reasons, she would have had to sue me to get me to seal up that window. Okay, and that would have cost her money, and I probably would have been liable at the end, but it was not a quick fix like that. I was not obligated to take out that window. I did it because it was the right thing to do, because I wanted to be in line with the rules. I wanted to be at peace with my neighbors, and I wanted to take people into consideration. And that's why when we skip to episode 3, and you hear them talk in the HOA meeting about how I was so this, and you can't talk to her, and she didn't give a fuck, and she didn't give a fuck about the rules. That shit doesn't match what happened in episode 2 at all. And you were being polite. She wasn't. She was trying to bully you. When I was speaking to her in her restaurant, she was very condescending. She was still trying to intimidate me. As I didn't realize it in the moment, but as I listen to it now, especially now that I know her character, I went there very naively. I had no idea I was walking into the lion's den. I didn't know who these people were. I didn't know what type of people these were. I just knew she owned the house next to me. If I had known then what I know now about them, I would have never approached them. Ever, ever, ever. Yeah, she made it sound like you just showed up to her restaurant. And that's what she made it sound like to the neighbors, right? When at the meeting. Well, she came to my restaurant. And when she came to my house, well, how you came to my restaurant. I came to, and look at why I went to her restaurant. When I reached out to speak to her, I knew she had just had a baby. Her baby was a few months old. So I said to her, hey, like, let's sit down and talk. I know you just had a baby. I can come to you so it's not an inconvenience. She's the one that chose me to go to her restaurant. But I went there looking for her to save her the trip to come to me, being empathetic, being a kind person. Like, and none of that. Like, I didn't get credit for any of that, and that was my frustration. I didn't get credit for the kindness that I showed, for the empathy that I showed, for the understanding, for the, like, la buena fe that I had the entire time. And when it came down to talk about those events, I was portrayed as just this, I don't give a fuck, I have money, you don't. She, dio mordida, she did this without my authorization. If you're keeping up on my Spanish TikTok account, I dropped receipts today of a post she recently made where she said that I did all that without her authorization. That does not match the receipts at all. Oh, she gave me authorization, but she wanted that and some. She wanted everything that I did plus more. And that is when the issues began, when I said no more. No, I'm not paying for your grass. No, I'm not going to make additional alterations to the material on that wall. No more. In the conversation at the restaurant, she literally says, you can build 15 floors for all I care. Did you all catch that part? Has anyone reached out to neighbors and told them to watch all this? I have had a couple of neighbors reach out to me through Instagram DM and mention watching the videos. I have not really engaged. I have not really replied. I know they're watching my videos, especially now, because they were watching my videos back in February, my TikToks, okay? Because they can't help themselves but watch it because it has to do with them. I know they're watching, especially now as I'm exposing receipts and conversations, because there's conversations with them in it. If I was them, I know that I would be watching too, because I would want to know what's being said about me. I would want to know what's being said about my home and my involvement in all of this. So the people, and I'm not saying all 60 neighbors and all 60 homeowners are watching, but the people that were in the HOA meeting in February, I'm 100% that they have watched some of this content. I don't know if they've watched all of it. But you know who has watched all of it and is probably in this fucking live with us? Is Chlas. All this sums up in one word: envy. Sadly, our beautiful country and its beautiful people suffer with envy. Yes. She sounded very condescending while she was talking to you at the restaurant. She really clung on your vulnerability. And I was very vulnerable. I opened up to her. And you know where I fucked up? Was opening up to her and telling her, I'm not from here. I don't have, the knowledge of the laws. I did this without this. And that is what she clung on to and turned around and weaponized that against me. I did trust in her. I did think that we were just two neighbors trying to come to an agreement, trying to make las paces. And that was very naive of me, because I have no idea what type of people I was dealing with. These are bad people. I'm sorry to say it. If we look at their history, these are people that have taken advantage, that target vulnerable people, target people that cannot defend themselves or that don't know how to defend themselves. At least at that time I didn't. And you can see it in the way that she asked me for the grass. If you guys saw the screenshot, I don't know if I posted that one on the YouTube series, but in the way that she asked me to do her grass too, I was just like, that's when I was like, look, I'm a nice person, but that just seems like a little, and I was going to do it. I was going to do it it was going to cost me $300 to put fucking concrete in her backyard. If that would have been the end of it, I would have done it. But I know that it wouldn't have. I started to see that this is just an ongoing thing. It's never going to end because es una aprovechada. And I told her that. And she got super offended, and that's why we started fighting. I did move. I moved in February. I did move. Yeah, so I moved in February, and I will get episode 4 focuses on the reasons that I moved, and I've never really shared those with you guys. I never shared those publicly, specifically because it was part of an ongoing legal case, but I'm going to share them in episode 4. So the HOA meeting. So now let's jump into episode 3. The HOA meeting was a shit show, you guys. Oh my God. It was such a shit show. I had a hard time putting that video together because I had to play that meeting again. And I got jumped, bitch. I got jumped in that fucking meeting. And by the time they gave me the floor to speak, they had beat the fuck out of me verbally that I didn't want to talk anymore. Okay, so let's recap it, right? This meeting was 2 hours long. It was a 2-hour-long meeting. When we got there, I got voted in as the secretary. Jimmy opposed to me being the secretary, and I understood why later on. You took on corporations, you take on little people. I feel like Jimmy had a plan all along, letting you build and turn the neighbors against you because Chlas didn't know about the windows until, yes, Jimmy did this maliciously. I will die on that hill. When I started my construction, we were already ops. And I talked about the reasons why him and I fell out in episode 1. He's an asshole, right? He pulled the plug on my kid's bouncer at her birthday party. And ever since then, I said, fuck you, Jimmy. Okay, but I 100% believe that he let me do all of that on purpose. And he had intentions of this all along. Chlas even said it when I went to talk to her. Because while I was putting up the windows that I wasn't supposed to put up, he was calling the homeowners and telling them about it. Why didn't you tell me? You were standing right there while the workers were installing these fucking windows. You're the one that was opening the doors to these houses, and not once did you ever fucking tell me. Not once did you ever write me up. Not once did you file a complaint with the city. Nothing. All you did was ruffle up the neighbors so that they would come to me. And he's the one that called Chlas and told her she can't have windows. So then Chlas circled back and said, hey, well, let's do it this way. Jimmy just told me this, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'll modify it. Because I didn't know you couldn't have windows. I know that sounds real stupid, but I honestly did not know that you couldn't put windows into the backyard. It totally makes sense. It's privacy issues. I understand, which is why I wasn't going to fight. I didn't have to close those windows. I was under no legal obligation yet. Yes, she could have taken me to court and forced me, and that's what I should have had her done. But because I'm a nice neighbor and I didn't want no issues, I didn't want to affect anybody. I didn't want to make people have to spend money for me to fix things and do things the right way. So I fixed it on my own. So yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm trying to read your guys' comments as I'm going through this. So the HOA meeting was such a shit show, you guys. So I didn't even want to go. I wasn't going to go, but I knew that I needed to go because this was the week where everything popped off back to back to back in the matter of a week. I remember when we finished my rooftop and I was just sitting on on the rooftop, and I was just, the workers had left. All the material was gone. It was peaceful. And I was like, what am I going to do with myself? I didn't even know what to do with myself because it was so peaceful and quiet. I was saving so much money. I didn't have to pay labor, material no more. That should lasted me 1 fucking week. And these motherfuckers came pounding, hounding, whatever you want to call it. It first started with the fight with Chlas. She sent me to the city. And then the city cited me, because I wasn't there when the city came, they left me a notice that they would be back the next day to inspect my job site. Then she hit me with the mediation notice. Let's talk about that mediation notice, Chlas. That mediation, so she tried to sue me, demandarme for posting the videos on TikTok of her. Obviously, it didn't go anywhere. But riddle me this, Chlas. She went in Me demandó según ella. Supposedly she sued me. She filed a complaint with the prosecutor's office. And she was giving a mediation within 2 days. I was never served with any copy of why I was sued, what this had to do with. The paper that was served to me through the administrator, not the PI, like the police investigator that's supposed to serve it. So I learned a lot about the legal process after I sued her, right? It took me 6 months to get a mediation date on my case, and it took her 2 days. Why do we think that is? Go ahead. I'll give you one guess. Go ahead. Go ahead, besties. Go ahead and give me a wild guess on how she got that shit so fast. Any takers? Any takers? Nobody? Nobody has a wild guess as to how she was able to get a mediation notice within 2 days, and that shit took me 6 months. Because I went through all the proper channels. I filed the notice. She was served a protective order. She was served a copy of the demanda. There was a process that you have to go through before you get to mediation. I wasn't even served with a copy of what the mediation was about. It didn't tell me who sent it. It was just a notice that said you have to be here at this time and this date to mediate at the prosecutor's office that deals with criminal cases. She's connected in there. This is the same prosecutor's office that is handling my case. So I'll let you make with that what you will, okay? So I am willing to bet money that she went in there. She either paid or a favor was done to her to scare me into taking those videos down. That notice was not served to me by the police investigator who was supposed to serve these. It was served to me by the Koto administrator. Okay, I believe she went in there. Somebody did her a favor to write up this notice for her, and she gave it to the administrator who served it to me one evening at like 10 p.m. at night. That is not how service is supposed to be done, and I know that because I've now gone through the correct process in my own case against her. Okay, so yes, corruption. There is a lot of corruption on that side of the bridge and in that prosecutor's office. And I didn't know what to make of it at the time. I was told not to go. I had an attorney that was advising me, and he told me, just don't go. Those things are optional. And at the end of the day, I had no idea what it had to do with. No fucking idea. So I never got any notice. I never got any copies. I never got served with anything. It obviously didn't go anywhere. It is not a criminal offense for me to post her on my TikTok account. She can try to sue me later and civilly if she can prove that I defamed her, which fat chance. Yeah, she has every right to go and file a court case, but she never has. So, yeah, where was I getting to that? Oh, so anyway, that week of the HOA meeting is when everything popped off, right? So I didn't want to go to that meeting. I was so nervous, you guys. I will be straight up with you. I was really nervous to go to that meeting. And so I hired an attorney to come with me because I didn't know what I was up against. I knew that my house would be a topic that would be discussed. I knew that she would be there. I knew Jimmy would be there. But I did not expect what happened at that meeting. I really didn't. I went into that meeting really thinking we had a fair shot of I did not think it was going to go down the way that it went down. And it was a hard hit. So by the time we got to talking about my house, we had been there for an hour talking about other stuff, fees and budgets and all that shit, who's behind, etc. Well, my time to shine comes, right? And first, let's talk about the new board members. She claims that she was voted in. She was not voted in, okay? Nobody wanted to take the spot. So Jimmy volunteered her. She didn't even volunteer herself, okay? She was just sitting there, and he volunteered her. I don't know if they had talked about this prior, but it was a very awkward volunteer in, right? So she gets volunteered in, and I tried to also volunteer myself in. My attorney was like, do it, volunteer, get in there. I didn't want to do it, but my attorney told me to, so I raised my hand. They all objected. Well, not all. Jimmy, there was like 6 of them. I don't know. You can hear it in the meeting. There was an amount of people that objected to me being part of the board because of a conflict of interest. And I didn't speak up. I didn't explain how it would be a conflict of interest for her. But I think that it should have been, it wasn't obvious because we didn't speak about my house until after. So they were very strategic and voting in the new members first. And then we discussed all these issues. And then that's when, you know, all the personal issues came about. Seeing how money hungry, sticky fingers Jimmy is, a part of me wonders if maybe he has such a problem with you because you didn't pay him off for all the doors he opened for you. I didn't know I was supposed to, because I really didn't think I was doing anything wrong. It wasn't a favor to me because I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. So why would I pay him? Plus, we're anti-corruption here, okay? So anyway, once they started talking about my house, and you guys heard it, it was a shit show. You know, I still believe that they were more angry, more pressed about the social media. I don't know how many times my social media was mentioned in that meeting. Los TikToks. Lo pueden ver en el TikTok. En el TikTok. Ahí está en el TikTok. Ahí están los videos. Sí se pueden ver los videos. Perros envidiosos. Oh my God. I wanted to be like, yo, are we here to talk about the houses or are we here to talk about fucking TikTok? Please, be so for fucking real. And it wasn't even just her. The fucking dudes were doing it too. Like when and he was the prior president. He was Daniel. He was like, you could see it. She calls us jealous bitches. Ahí están los videos. And I'm just like, I don't look for, and I said, why do you guys look for me? He's like, oh, so you do call us. That's not what I said. But why do you guys look for my social media? If you don't like what I'm posting, if it bothers you, because up until then, I hadn't identified anybody, with the exception of Chlas, okay? This was a personal thing between her and I. Yes, she was called a jealous bitch by a lot of people in the comment section. Yes, I blasted her, but it was very much a one-on-one thing. I never, and you guys are a witness, I never sat on there and said, all my neighbors are fucking jealous of me because they can't do this, because they can't do that. I never said that. Never came out of my mouth. I never called my neighbors perros envidiosos. You know how I knew they were fucking lying? Because I don't even know how to insult motherfuckers in Spanish yet, okay? I'm still learning. And that was a good one. That was a good one to learn. But so I just sat there and it was really frustrating. And there was a point where I tried to speak up. And I was like, are you going to let me talk? It's my house you're talking about. They're like, yeah, but hang on. Right. And then they just kept throwing up about my house and social media. And she's this and she's that. They brought up my kids. Did you guys catch the part where Jamie brought up when Axel was fucking 2 years old? Oh, I need to talk about that. He brought up the fact that my kids supposedly would go around beating up the plants. It happened one time. Axel was 2 years old and he took a branch off a fucking tree in front of Jimmy's house, okay? And then if you caught it, he mentioned that I was the only house that voted against surveillance cameras in the Coto. You know why he said that? He left out why I voted against it. And it shouldn't matter that I voted against it. Like, I'm free to vote. But he made it seem like such a bad thing. She's the only one that voted against. You know why? What I voted against was him having fucking cameras pointing at the fucking pool because I said it was fucking weird that he was recording little girls in swimming suits. That is what I voted against. But again, he didn't pull all of that out there. But I was pissed that he brought up the kids. Like, Axel was 2, and he was like, and ever since there's been cameras, there haven't been no more. I was smacked it. You know what, Jimmy, I'm so fucking glad that lady gave you a cachetada, okay? When she gave you a cachetada, el pinche panzazo que te dieron, like, that shit was so overdue. It gets worse, okay? Episode 4, you guys are really, really going to see his character in episode 4. I love the other neighbor that acknowledged they had told her she could build. Yeah. He also said he didn't approve the glass on the rooftop and he did in the voice notes. Thank you. There was a lot of things that didn't match the receipts. A lot. He totally told me that the glass was fine. And I thought that was like nice. Like, I didn't have to do that either. I'm in my right to install protecciones in my house. I didn't have to do any of that. But you see what I mean? That even the things that I did give into, at the end of the day, it didn't matter. None of it mattered. I should have kept my original railings because they threw the same fucking fit. I should have kept my original windows on Chlas' wall because the same shit happened. It wouldn't have never mattered if I did everything that they wanted me to do. I firmly believe that the end result would have been the same. Because look at how everything was painted. Why did he need cameras pointing at the pool? He literally had a security camera in his own house. It was his private camera that pointed right at the pool. And I brought it up one time that, back then we didn't have security cameras in the neighborhood yet. So it was his personal camera that was pointed onto the pool. And I said that shit was weird. And it made me uncomfortable to have my kids being recorded by him from his personal camera. And I said, I'm uncomfortable being recording at the pool by his personal camera. That shit is weird. And that is when me and his wife fell out, because she said, are you accusing him of being a pedo? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. That's called voyeurism. It's fucking weird. There's kids in swimming suits. There's women. Why does he need a fucking camera pointing the pool? He is not the security guard. So little things like that I challenged him on, that I thought was wrong. And there were several neighbors that backed me on that. They reached out to me privately and they're like, we don't agree either. Like, he's out of line for that. So that's what he was referring to in the HOA meeting when he said she was the only person that voted against cameras. I was constantly the only person that would stand up to him, that would challenge him, whether it was about, why are we paying this much? Why do you have cameras here? You're not, when he unplugged the bouncer, like, that was an abuse of power. Like, there's ways to go about things. Fine me if I go over midnight at the pool. You don't get to just turn off the fucking breaker. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? That is where him and I began to have issues, because I do challenge him. I do challenge them when they're in the wrong. And this whole HOA meeting, I have no problem with them trying to hold me accountable for breaking rules if I broke them, or laws if I broke them. But do it the legal way. That has been my problem. Taking away my remote is not the legal way. Taxing me daily for fines that that don't even exist in the law that you're quoting is not the right way. The fucking maña don't even do that shit. Me están cobrando piso for my own house, pretty much. And the fucking top dogs don't even charge that shit. It's what it is. They're extorting me for my house existing. It's literally, they're wanting me to pay rent on my own house. That shit is not outlined in the laws that they're quoting. Even if it was a legit HOA and they had all their paperwork in line, there is nothing that gives them the legal right to fine a house every single day. You know what the law rule book says? That you have the right, they have, if they were a real HOA, the right to fine a house while it's occurring once. It does not say anything about being able to do a daily fine. That was something that Jimmy literally pulled out of his fucking asshole at the meeting. And because all the neighbors there, nobody looks into that shit. Nobody's read the rule book. They just went along with it. I didn't even know that at the time. Okay, it took me after that meeting having to go and like read everything and my attorneys and shit, but I didn't even fucking know that. Jimmy still hasn't picked up his money from Nope. He has not been able to collect a fucking dime from me. Why? Because his paperwork is not in line either. So how the fuck do you come to me talking to me about, there's ways to do it. You didn't do it the right way. You guys heard the media. Es que no lo hiciste bien. You motherfuckers are not doing it right either. What the tiene que ser todo parejo. You cannot come to my door talking about permits when you don't have permits. You know, the whole thing. So anyway, after that meeting, when it came time, when they finally gave me the floor, I was pissed off, okay? I was triggered. They brought up my kids. You heard the fuckery that Chlas gave. She gave a lot of lies. Can we all collectively agree? Now that we've heard the receipts, you've seen the conversations I had with her, both through text message at her restaurant. Can we all collectively agree, and feel free to say, no, that's not right. She misrepresented and lied about a lot of things to the neighbors to make herself seem like the victim and me like the villain. Like I was just this person that said, fuck everybody. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Fuck all you jealous motherfuckers. That's what she made me out to be. And personally, I just don't feel like that matches what actually happened. And, you know, the comments that were made about my kids, that was so out of line. Why do you keep bringing up my kids? Like, my kids had nothing to do with that meeting. My kids had nothing to do with the construction. Why it wasn't necessary? You know, and I was later told by the administrator they were trying to trigger you so that you would act out in front of the entire neighborhood. All in favor that Chlas is a liar, raise your hand. I think he is just sick trying to make everybody's life miserable because of his illness. No, he got sick because of his of his fuckery, in my opinion. She sure did. She flipped it all to her advantage. Yeah. And it's what she's done even on social media. The recent receipts that I shared on my Spanish account on TikTok, she flips everything. Like, I don't know if she actually believes the shit that comes out of her mouth. But they're straight lies. They're not, it first started with like, she would kind of flip things a little bit. But this shit has escalated to straight lies. And you guys will hear some of it in episode 4. I would love to give you guys a quick preview of what episode 4 sounds like. And unfortunately I don't have it ready. I didn't prepare for this. So it's going to take me a second. But I just wanted to give you guys a preview of the fuckery, of the lies that were told in the unofficial meeting that will premiere on episode 4. And I believe this meeting happened in April. I don't know if I have it loaded on this phone. You guys, I'm sorry. Quick break, a quick intermission while I try to pull receipts. I don't know if I'll find it here. I think it's actually on my laptop. This was before I moved, after I moved. The unofficial meeting that was held is about 2 hours long. But April 10th, yeah, I don't think I'm going to find it in here, you guys. I'm sorry. I was not prepared for the preview. Okay, yeah, I don't have it. I'm sorry. We're going to have to skip over it. Yes. I want to find it for you guys, but I don't know why it's not saved in this phone. It should be saved in my receipts, in my... Oh, it is. I do have it. Let it load, though. It has to download from... It's an hour and a half long. So, look. I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I have to explain in episode 4 why I moved out, everything that happened. That wasn't it. Hold on. I didn't bookmark the part that I wanted to preview you guys with. Yeah, hold on. We're gonna have to save this for episode 4. Tisa Risa, thank you for joining. I went to Chlas restaurant in 2022 without knowing it was her. She was so mouthy to a lady that was cleaning tables. I have heard a lot of stories about how she treats people, particularly workers, employees, and shit like that. I went to her restaurant too without knowing it was hers, before I even knew she was my neighbor. And oddly enough, she knew I was her neighbor before I knew she was my neighbor. So she's never lived in the house next to me. And I've gone to her restaurant because if you've ever been to Bucerias, her restaurant is like one of the first that you walk past next to the letters. And so I went there a couple of times with one of my girlfriends. And one time the waiter was like, "Oh, you're La Patrona's vecina." And I was like, "What?" Like, I didn't know who she was. I didn't know she owned the house next to me. I didn't know. I'd never seen her before. I didn't know who she was. But she already knew who I was. And she told the waiter. And so it was like, I just laughed it off. I was like, "Oh, I asked for the neighbor discount and shit." Just laughed it off. But that now that I look back, that kind of makes me feel funny because I don't know how she noticed me. I had never seen her. She'd never been to the house, at least not when I was there. So it was a really weird interaction. But all the reviews on that restaurant are terrible. Even before I knew her, she tried to tell my mom that I sent people to leave her bad reviews. Baby girl, those reviews were already there. Let's check the dates, please. Check the dates. And I have heard a lot of stories about how she treats her employees. I heard a lot of horror stories from the attorneys that I dealt with in Bahia when I was trying to find one to help me. I was told a story, and this is all alleged because I don't know if it's true. I wasn't there. One of the attorneys that I was working with initially, he knew the family very well, and he told me that they were known for a lot of crooked shit. And there was a case where they had fired some employees without paying them what they owed them. And so that they wouldn't have to pay them, they accused them of theft and had them thrown in jail. And that would not surprise me. With the types of connections I've seen or the things that they do on that side of the bridge, that would not surprise me at all. You can see it in the way that she talked to the albañil that was there the day of the incident with the balcony and the dust. You can tell the way she spoke to him, how she treats people. And that was very telling. That bothered me when I saw how she spoke to him, because I'm a very, like, especially like with my workers and stuff, like I had a lot of cariño for them. I have a lot of respect for them. I treat them the way that I would treat anybody, right? But in her interaction with him, I didn't like how she spoke to him. And I think that was just, again, another representation of a perfect example of her character. She probably saw you on TikTok before the drama. Fabi, I didn't have TikTok back then. This was like early on. This was like 2019 when I had barely bought my home. I didn't have a TikTok yet. I wasn't on social media like that. I was a fucking nobody back then. It was very, very early on. If it had been nowadays, like I know people recognize me from social media, but back then I wasn't on TikTok yet. Are you dropping part 4? I will be dropping part 4 next week. And that will be, there's going to be a lot to unpack there. I wanted to give you guys a preview of it, but the meeting is so long that I don't have like a direct, like anywhere. I didn't bookmark it to give you guys a preview of what I was going to give you. The preview I wanted to give you guys was the one where she told my mom that we made her famous because she got like 100 new followers in the last week. What? So, let me go back to our question. So, I don't understand Spanish, but the way she represents herself, she acts shady. And, like, this entire thing isn't really about Chlas. I hate to focus so much on her, but she is the reason why this shit blew up the way that it did. Prior to this, when her and Jimmy joined forces, that's when it took off. Prior to this, it may have been Jimmy saying this, saying that, but it wasn't until both of them decided to team up. And the funny thing is, they were also ops until they decided to meet up for the common good of the community to fuck me. That is the irony. You guys saw the way that she talks about him in the meeting when I went to her restaurant. You guys saw the text messages where nobody wanted him back as administrator, where she reached out to me, hey, come to the meeting so he doesn't get back on the board. She used to be his op. And honestly, it always happens that way. People that don't fuck with you will link up because they can't go toe with you. They can't. Jamie could never take me on. Chlas could never take me on. Chlas can't even fucking go nowhere without her fucking husband tagging along everywhere. And this happens to me all the time. Like, I don't even mean to, like, have a big head, but every time I go through things like this, it's always in numbers. People always have to come at me in numbers. When I went through it with fucking Michelle and Sabrina and Walter, in numbers. Julia with her fucking 7-8 creators, numbers. Chlas, how to get on the board, numbers. It's never a fair one-on-one fight. And I think that's why I hate confrontation so much, because if it was just like me and her, and I said this should have been a civil case between two houses. She's in her every right to sue me if she claims that I damaged her property. 100%. 100%. If she really believes that I have damaged her property, that I have affected her, you have every right to sue me. And this should go to court. And a judge will decide. But it should have been between two houses, not the entire community. And to date, it's not like I haven't been sued. But the reason why, she was strategic. She chose to put herself on the board so that the lawsuit would be funded by the entire community instead of by her. You guys heard in that meeting, several neighbors said, my house does not affect them. It's already there. It looks nice. It doesn't affect anybody except for Chancla, but because, one, she doesn't have the balls to go head on with me by herself. Two, she doesn't have the money to sue me by herself. So that's why she placed herself on the board, so she could have everybody else pay for her berrinche. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. And I will die on that hill because you could see it through the videos. The minute she's told no, she loses her shit. Do you think he has heard that? Heard what? Jimmy? Oh, I don't know. I know Jimmy watches my content too very closely. And I know he speaks enough English to understand it. Because remember, he knew I was going to buy the flipper before that shit even got to me. So yes, he watches my content. In episode 4, you will also hear him make comments about my social media. There was, I believe, a few comments made that him and Chlas were like hooking up. I didn't make those comments, okay? There was a lot of comments made through the course of this on TikTok when I put this out there. And a lot of people would just say stupid stuff like that. That must have bothered him because he brought it up in the unofficial meeting where he talked about that I was telling people that him and Chlas were hooking up. And I've never said that. I have never fucking implied that. All I have said is they joined forces. But I've never said there was something romantic going on between them. I don't think that's the case at all. But, you know, people made their own assumptions or made a lot of comments, and I was held responsible for all of those comments that you guys made that got to them. The comments where you guys said that she was jealous, the comments where you guys said that they were fucking, the comments where somebody said that con el dinero baila el perro, all those comments, I was held accountable for them in that fucking meeting. So they took everything that has been said on social media and said that I said it. And that's how they painted it to the other neighbors that were there that had no idea what the fuck was going on. I don't agree with that. I mean, I don't agree with it, but I do see how they feel that I'm responsible for that. But there's a difference in saying she put this out, and there's a difference in saying she said this about all of us. No, Chanclas, I said it about you, and I'll say it again. You are a jealous bitch, and I stand on that hill. I will die on that hill. But I said those things about you, not the entire community. I didn't say that shit. I didn't say nothing about the entire community. I said that shit about you. And maybe now Jimmy. So it was a straight misrepresentation to go in there and say she said we're all jealous of her, bola de perros, blah, blah, blah. I've never said that. Les consta that I have never, ever said that. Those words never came out of my mouth. I'm wondering what the neighbors think with all the receipts being put out there. I will tell you this, based on what I saw, and I've shown you guys, they are more uncomfortable with the fact that this is being publicized than the fact that this is going on. Perfect example, when I released the conversation from the administrator. The administrator literally said, this woman has no interest in our community. She's using this to screw you. Okay? They were more upset about the fact that I posted it on TikTok than the context of that phone call. And I believe these videos make them all very uncomfortable. A lot, because now you can say, I have devalued your community in some way, shape, or form. It wasn't my house build that devalued your community. It was the fucking drama that was created over my house build that devalued. Since then, I have seen several people in surrounding cotos posts about their house for sale that don't live in my community. But people posting that don't buy here because Chlas, don't rent here because Chlas, and then the owners have to clarify we're not in that coto. I 100% know that the bad publicity that they have received has made all of them uncomfortable. Every single neighbor, and because of that, I feel like they resent me. I feel like that's kind of why they are just kind of sitting back and letting things happen, because at the end of the day, I became the problem because I'm the one speaking out and publicizing it. And one thing about, people in Mexico, they care a lot about what people think, what people say. And so yeah, I think they are listening, but I don't think they care about what's going on. They care about the fact that it's being put out there and that it could affect how people look at them. Do you think they're so uncomfortable about it because it's going to open up the eyes of your neighbors to all the shady stuff that's going on and how the HOA wasn't legit? I think they're only uncomfortable because it could potentially affect them with renting or selling their homes. I don't think they care. They don't care about the HOA not being legit, or they wouldn't be paying cash for 6 years without asking questions. I feel like you messed up there. She could have gave you insight. So let me talk about the administrator, okay? My mom had the same opinion that I shouldn't have outed her. And I will say that she was kind to me. She was helping me. She was like my insider, right? But at the end of the day, she was employed by them and she was going to move with them. Okay, so when I made the decision to post that conversation, one, it was an impulsive decision, emotional, and a desperate decision. And I really thought that that would help me. At the end of the day, she was still on their team. She was employed by them. Okay, so she was the one bringing me the notices. She was the one telling me, offer them this, offer them that. And I was doing it, but it wasn't working. I realized she had no say. The people running that, the whole thing was Jimmy and Chlas. So she ended up being collateral damage. Unfortunately, she also ended up sued. She is part of the demanda, her and the other board members. So regardless of how this went down, even if I hadn't posted that at that moment, eventually she was on their team regardless, and she was gonna have, and I was gonna have to sue her too, because she was doing things as well without the legal authority to do them. All those fines that she was delivering, all that shit was also illegal. So at the end of the day, her and I were going to fall out regardless because I had to sue her. But I agree that, I threw her under the bus and she was just trying to help me. But in my defense, it wasn't done maliciously. It wasn't done to, oh, fuck her. But it was done as a defensive move because at the end of the day, I was on my own. Whether she was giving me a little intel here or there, at the end of the day, she was still on their team. And she didn't have power or control to really help me besides give me insider detail. And honestly, she is the one, and I almost think like that insider detail was more hurtful than anything. It was stressing me out more because they were the ones telling me that this meeting was going to be hosted in 2 weeks. We know that never happened. It's never been, And I feel like she also could have stood up and said, this is wrong. This is what's going on. This is what I'm seeing. And she didn't. And although she was trying to help me on the DL, at the end of the day, she was making money. She was profiting. She was employed. She's the one person on the board that is paid by all the homeowners. She's the one person that has a paid position. So at the end of the day, she's an employee profiting off of this, And so again, I do acknowledge that it was wrong to do that because she didn't do anything to me. It wasn't personal. It was not personal against her. But I really thought that it would help me. I really thought that if everybody else could hear that it was coming from her, not from me, then something would have happened and she would have been removed and they would have seen that what was happening was wrong. But that was that. And also, I did also know that by exposing that, it would create distrust within the board from Chlas to her. And also, I was trying to dismantle their team because at the end of the day, they were a team against me. I think a lot of what you put out there could have been private, especially your sources. Yes and no. And again, I do think that publicizing all of this has been part of their issue with everything. But I also, and I haven't gotten to this part yet, we'll get to it in part 4 of why I decided to go so public with everything. And she still wouldn't have helped you by telling on what she was telling. Yes, she was definitely playing both sides. 100% she was playing both sides. And, yeah, I'm sure she didn't expect that out of me because she knew that I was also in a very vulnerable position. So she probably, you know, expected me to keep all that on the DL. Most people would have. And honestly, I should have. I should have. But again, I was functioning under a lot of stress. Okay? I was anxious, and this is when it started. I started to unravel. I really did. I was not moving with logic. I was moving very emotionally. I was scared. I felt cornered. I felt ganged up on. I was being threatened and being removed and displaced from my home. Okay. So that had a lot of bearing onto these decisions that I made impulsively with exposing things. And that was a prime example out of that. Prime example was what I did with the administrator. And, you know, my mom called me immediately and she was like, what the fuck are you doing? She was your only inside. She was the only person that was really trying to help you. And that was when I started kind of seeing that I was losing it because I was in a really, like, they had me fucked up. They really did. They had me, the amount of pressure they put on me, honestly, is so sad to me as I look back. True to their word, like you heard in the meeting, they made my life difficult. And they wanted to make my life difficult until I gave in to what they wanted. Moving out was not on their fucking bingo card. Me leaving that house that they watched me build through so much work and sacrifice with 5 children as a single mother, they did not think that was an option for me. And that's why they wanted to corner me and harass me until I folded and said, okay, I'll do it. And maybe I would have. Honestly, I feel like anybody that had been in that situation long enough, you may have eventually caved or done some stupid shit out of emotion because it was so much pressure. I mean, this is my home, you guys. This is where I have my kids. This is where, you know, and they were coming to my house every single day. Every single day there was something new. I was anxious. It was a bad place to be in. And I really think it's sad that that is the route they chose to take instead of doing it legally. Because they could have accomplished probably the same thing without being villainized for it. But because of the way that they chose to do it and set it up, it was malicious. It was malicious. It was evil. It was calculated. It was personal. It wasn't like we're just doing, no, that was entirely personal. What does your mom think about this? She, and we'll get more into this in episode 4, but she now sees it as a witch hunt as well. She went in there very open-minded. She did not go in there like just to bat for me or to defend me. Trust me, my mom's the number one person that will check me and tell me you fucked up. And she told me I fucked up. She told me like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is not the way to do it, blah, blah, blah. And she came ready to demolish. She came ready to like take down the rooftop. And when she walked out of that meeting with a completely different perspective when she talked to them. And that spoke for that kind of validated me, where I was like, you see, I'm not crazy. It's not that I'm dramatic. It's not that I'm this. Like, these are people that have a personal issue and are using this house issue para desquitarse. They truly thought they could get away with what they put you and your family through. Honestly, they might. You know, it's not over yet. It's not over yet. But here's something that I truly, truly believe in. I believe in energy. I believe in karma. For example, look at the 2015 news article of what Chlas and her family did to the American family. That was in 2015, okay? That family moved out. I don't know what ended up happening with that case. I'm going to bet money that case didn't go anywhere. But they sued them and they left a record of it, a public record of it. Okay? And maybe Chlas never had to pay for that. But I promise you, I came along, 2015 was years ago. I came along almost 10 years later. And that news article, if she didn't pay for it now, or back then, she's paying for it now publicly by being exposed for it. And I believe that's part of her karma for what she did to that family. I had no idea that, like, that shit just kind of landed in my lap, right? And when I got it, I was like, oh my God, I am not the first family that she does this to. They have a record of it. That already happened to one of them, right? So here comes fucking the Aaron Brockovich and me talk about like I'm gonna be the last one. I'm gonna go through this league. I'm gonna sue the fuck out of her, and I did and doing, But I believe she's paying for some of that this round. You know what I mean? That family may not have had the ability to broadcast it the way that it's been broadcasted now, but they left a little seed, they left a little trail, and that's exactly what I'm doing now, because I promise you I will not be the last family that this happens to. I promise you I'm not the first, I'm not the last person that has these types of issues with these people. These are bad people. They are known both here in Jalisco and Nayarit, and not for good things. There are several people that have filed legal issues. They have a lot of legal issues. I'm gonna just put it at that. And I'm not here to like lay out their entire criminal history. The only reason why I shared that news article is because she's in it and she was a part of it. And it shows you how she moves and the type of shit that they do. They could have accomplished what they thought they would had it been anyone else than you. Yes. Any other family in that koto would have folded like that. And I was supposed to. I don't know, porque like I'm not a fan of the fact que me tocó a mí. I'm really not. Like I don't like to be in these fucking issues, but unfortunately I am not wired in a way where I fold to these things. I'm wired in a way that I'm used to fighting, I'm used to challenging, I'm used to pushing for what I believe is right. And I do believe in picking your battles, which is also a reason why I moved. Hopefully they get hard slapped with the law so they won't do it to me. I don't have faith in the law here. Nobody does. Okay. But you eventually meet a bigger fish than you. I'm not saying it's going to be me. It maybe won't. But I will leave some type of impression. I will leave my little mark in this entire experience. Because one thing is, she's never been challenged like this ever. She's never been exposed like this ever. Most people would have folded out of fear, out of not having resources or finances to defend themselves or to get their family to safety. And honestly, like, I don't know what the future holds with that house, right? I mean, we're still on episode 3. There's a lot more to unpack, but it's still, this whole series is still happening in real time. Anyway, so episode 1, 2, and 3, as we're wrapping up, any last questions that you guys may have, comments? Episode 4 I'll begin editing it early on Monday and have it dropped probably by Thursday to the public, and hopefully by Tuesday to my members. So my channel members will have like not sneak previews, but they'll be able to have early access to the videos. Why hasn't the SAT gotten involved? That's a great question. Because I know I should have, but I'm not out to screw them. I really am not out to screw them. And I have simply been playing defense, not offense. I don't know if that will change in the near future. But I haven't reported them to the SAT because I'm just playing defense. And I think that would be an offense type of move. I really hope Chlas and Jimmy end up in jail. They may not end up in jail, but they will end up in court. And I think that I'm hoping that will at least make them think twice in the future. I know for damn sure you're going to think twice about fucking with me, Chlas, because you're going to end up on TikTok. And if that's the only reason, I'll take it. I'll take it. In the meeting, you guys heard her say, I stopped trying to talk to her because everything ends up a concert. Yes, that's exactly why I started posting things. So she would stop coming to my house. And it worked. She's the one thing that does make her think twice is her public appearance, her public image. And she was very confident and cocky. You can't post me. You can't post me. You can't post me. So I'm going to act a fool. I'm going to come throw dog shit. I'm going to yell at you in front of your kids. I'm going to cuss you out. I'm not going to leave your property until she ended up posted. And that's when it stopped. And if I hadn't posted it, 100% believe it would have continued to escalate. Are you still renting your home as an Airbnb? Yes, it's actually being rented as we speak. But yes, it's still in Verbo. It's low season right now. It's not the time of the year for vacationers, but it's been rented a few times through the summer. This has been great. I connected you up to the TV. Will this be available to rewatch? Yes, this will be available for replay. Thank you to those of you that joined. Any last minute questions before we wrapped up? This was great. Sorry, guys. If it wasn't for your social media, I wholeheartedly believe they would have done even more to you. I do too. That's what I've been saying all along. That's what I told my mom. That's what there's people that have told me, like, you should stop posting. You're making it worse, this and that. Like, you got to be careful. This is Mexico, blah, 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 blah. A lot of people have given me different advice. I stand by what I post because, one, there's a strategy to it. And two, I do believe that if this wasn't as publicized, it would have escalated quickly. And you guys, from the receipts that I have, you guys can see how every incident got more aggressive, more violent, and it's kept escalating. And that's with cameras. She specifically said, if you watch one of the videos, she said, wait till I catch you without cameras. First of all, you ain't never gonna catch me without cameras. Never, never, ever, ever. Because there's always cameras on me, around me, 24/7. Because I'm a walking reality show, okay? That's what I do for a living. But yeah, she specifically said, wait till I catch you without cameras. Why? Because this is a violent person. These are people that resort to violence and intimidation to get their way with people. And if I didn't have the spotlight on her, I 100% believe they would have already done worse. And nobody would. Then the reason why I posted is if and when, there's receipts for everything. And you're not going to have to wonder who did this to her. Why? What problems does she have? Because I have problems with nobody else except for this woman. I lived here very peacefully, quietly for 7 years. And none of this started until she came along. So no, you cannot, the whole she had problems with everybody. No, I don't. I make content. I make content that, maybe is drama here, drama there. I'm complaining about this. I'm this life in Mexico. I don't have problems like this in real life with anybody but these people. Once you learned about the neighbors using a weapon on previous people, did it ever scare you that this would escalate to violence and affect not only you but your kids? Absolutely. It's why I don't live there. Absolutely. When I saw the article, and this was before I moved, I didn't want to move. That was my home. That was my nest. But that had a lot to do with why I moved. Our safety, number one. Peace of mind. But I believe that eventually would have happened. Maybe not exactly like that, but these are people that with access to weapons. These are people that in the past have impersonated the police. These are people that now have family. That man that threw the shit at my house is a public servant. He's a police officer. The same people that would have been, that protective order that I was granted, guess who would be responding to a call on that? The same dude throwing shit at my house. Yeah, of course. Of course, safety became an issue. Of course, that news article, seeing their history, even if that shit was 9 years ago, that's the type of people they are. So, of course, like, you can't tiptoe around that. Absolutely, I was scared for my life. Absolutely, I was scared for the safety of my kids. Absolutely, I was walking on pins and needles when I was leaving my house and coming. These people were watching me closely. To date, they are watching me closely. Where can I see the article about what Chlas did to the other family? I have it posted on my Spanish channel, TikTok. You can You know, it shows you all the information. You can type it into Google and pull up the article. Any JRC TV reality show. I feel like I'm in one. Anyway, besties, we're gonna wrap up. Thank you so much for joining me. We're gonna do this again once we have like episode maybe 4 and 5. We may have to do another one of these after episode 4 because it is going to be it's gonna be a lot to take in. Episode 4 might be broken up into 2 parts because it's gonna be kind of long. Is there anything you regret or you wish you would have done differently? Yes. I wish I had, beginning from the contractor that I hired that scammed me, I wish I had gone to my mom. And I wish I had, I talked to her about the construction. She came to see it a couple times, but she just assumed. She assumed that I knew what I was doing. And I didn't. I wish I would have not trusted in the people that I trusted, and I wish I hadn't been so naive. The number one thing that my mother told me when I was being deported was to not trust anybody out here, that you cannot trust anybody. And unfortunately, I've had to learn that the hard way. I'm just naturally very trusting, very naive, very vulnerable, very open, and that got me into some fucked up situations. And the other thing that I do feel I did incorrectly and wish I would have done differently is, and you saw this in episode 2, I had the mentality that when we were working on the rooftop, I knew that the rooftop was going to set shit on fire. I knew that that shit would piss them off even more than if they already were. And I had the mentality that they're going to sue me anyway. What's the difference between suing me with 3 floors and a rooftop? That is how I moved. That was my mentality. And I said, fuck it, throw that shit up there. And so to an extent, yes, I had that attitude. But after a lot of, there were things that led up to that, right? I don't think it's fair to say that I was always like that. That is one point when I look back on the receipts that I wish I hadn't had that attitude. And I wish I had stopped. I wish I was in such defense mode that I didn't see the big picture. And perhaps it may have made a difference, perhaps not. But I wouldn't have the doubts that, like, I wish I had done things differently. And I do think it's fair to say that, like, I had no idea that this would escalate to this. If I had known it would get to this point, I don't know that I would have even built, to be honest. I would have made do with what I had. Maybe I would have bought another house. Maybe I would have bought terreno and started fresh over there. Those are the things that I consider too. Like, at the end of the day, I kind of wish instead of building all that, I would have bought land and started fresh. But I liked it there. I loved that house. I loved the community. Like, it was perfect for us. We just needed a little bit more space. And then my business grew and I needed more space for my business. And so it was like a gradual growth. You know what I mean? Was it ever confirmed if other neighbors complained other than Chlas? No. The only neighbors that were ever confirmed were Jimmy and Chlas. So, anyway, we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much for joining me. This will be available for replay. Episode 4 will drop next week. I know we are all really anxious. That is going to be a turning point in the series, and you guys will begin to understand why. In that episode, we will talk about why I moved. We will dig into the criminal case. You guys will get footage of them being served. You guys will get an inside look at the behind the scenes of what was happening and how they started to kind of flip things. The straight lies that were told, I can't even call it anything besides lies. You guys will get to hear them. That's why it's so important for you guys to watch 1, 2, and 3, because they contain all what actually happened when I was around. And then you will start to see what happens once I'm no longer in the community, the behind the scenes, the scheming, the planning, the lies, the way they try to paint everything. So anyway, that's enough for today. We are already a little bit over the time. I only wanted to do like an hour live. Thank you so much for joining me. Those of you that have been following this series, thank you. Thank you. It's been a success in kind of reboosting the YouTube channel, getting back active over here. This series won't last forever. And once we're done with this series, we will roll over to different content. But right now we are almost in the peak of this series. So stay tuned for next week. You will see episode 4 premiere. If you subscribe as a channel member, you will get early access to the new videos. And I am still toying with the idea of how much I want to release from that meeting. Some of it may be behind the membership wall. Not all of it, but some of it. So thank you to those of you that have subscribed, whether you're a channel member or just here for the public updates. I appreciate you so much. Congratulations to all of us for reaching 30,000 subscribers on YouTube. And we will see you guys next week with episode 4.